to research history and textile and culture. This is a proud people with ancient traditions of craft, we saw something that I don't think we've ever encountered anywhere in the world. And that was then. Imagine the troop to civilian ratio. Nobody knew where they could go, which bridge they could cross, what time they could give for a meeting, when they would have electricity, or when they would or would not be arrested. There was a cloak and wall of fear surrounding that entire area. And so, it is important to keep reminding ourselves and the international community that this is an internationally disputed territory. It is not settled. We're one of the largest and longest forcible occupations has rendered history a silent bystander on what has become a regime of genocidal brutality. It is genocidal brutality. Indian impunity has often been pushed aside. It's a convenience internationally, but it must not be forgotten, nor must this story of state terrorism be forgotten, because one of the tools of oppression is denying the people of the valley their voice and the ability to even tell their story. And here, that you are keeping alive, this is a truth that contemporary diplomacy must confront, ladies and gentlemen. Not the fiction spun by India that the matter was resolved in August 2019 after the revocation of forced attempt at revocation of Article 370. If you listen to debates in illegally occupied Kashmir, you will hear even mainstream politicians disputing that today. And no unilateral decree, so we must be reminded that no unilateral decree can erase the reality that Kashmir remains listed with the United Nations as the oldest dispute living on their dockets, unresolved. It is awaiting a settlement based on the will of its people. I keep repeating that because that is something that bears repetition. The will of the people cannot be forgotten. And it is our job and our responsibility to remind people that when India calls whatever it has done by fiat and state force and coercion, what it calls a resolution, in fact, is annexation, attempted annexation by stealth. That is exactly what it is. If other countries do it, there is a furor. There is conflict, and there is conflict even now, make no mistake. But this is an attempted annexation by stealth. I keep on saying attempted because I do not accept this reality. And nor must you, nor must Pakistan. So, where do we stand today? New Delhi has issued more than 4.2 million domicile certificates to non-Kashmiris, a deliberate and calculated effort to re-engineer the demographic character of this Muslim majority land. It's being done very fast, very speedily. Laws have been changed, constitutional articles changed, and we have 35A, and we have a re-engineering, a demographic re-engineering, so that one fine day, very soon, the people who lived on that land, who fought for that land, who bled for that land, who called it their identity and their mother, can no longer be the majority over there. And so this is the plan, to ethnically cleanse Kashmir, especially of the Muslims. Yet despite the binding UN Security Council resolutions, despite decades of international commitments, and despite an overwhelming human rights record, terrible human rights record, the people of Kashmir continue to wait. They have not accepted the annexation. This should not be a news flash. Whenever we get any communications from there, they look to us to tell their story and to remind the world that no, they have not accepted the annexation. Behind the bullets and the barricades and the barbed wire, they are still living in hope that their futures will change. And they continue to suffer. Again, the story is completely made suppressed. It is blanked out. And they also ask the world, who is standing with us? This is an important question. And today is a very signal opportunity to remind them that we are fully standing with them, and Kashmir is not forgotten. I keep saying this because there is a sense when you are a population under colonial repression, under state-sponsored terrorist laws that are, the draconian laws that continue to detain and torture young men, women, as well as young children, then it is very difficult to fight. Yet they continue to do so. So, the people of Kashmir, I have a message from them, stand up each day with the same question. Who stands with us? So our answer must always be clear. Pakistan stands with Kashmir. And what is our diplomatic position with, that has been described, Wilders Point, Mark Guy Huck, and how we have gone to several wars. Behind every war in India and Pakistan lies the Kashmir dispute. Make no mistake, it is not going away. Now, of course, you have the added impetus of water being weaponized. I call it hydro-terrorism. That is what the climate world calls it. That's hydro-terrorism. And it is not accepted or acceptable anywhere, at any forum. And the UN reports have said so. Recent UN reports, where India has said that Pakistan's use of terrorism is the reason they are weaponizing water with great impunity, or attempting to do so. We shall not let that happen, because there is, water is life. It sustains Pakistan's population, and it is not something that we are going to allow to be turned off. The Indus is the mother of the Indus Valley civilization, behind which has grown our populations for centuries. So we're not sleeping on this job either. If anyone imagines that, no one is. And we're not going to let any river be just diverted like a tap. It can't happen overnight, and if it does, there will be a great deal to hear and pay from India. Now, it is frankly today, there's a narrative shift that hasn't happened also. There was a constant refrain for years that Pakistan is exporting terrorism, Pakistan is doing this, Pakistan is doing that. Today, all such evidence of exporting terrorism has collapsed at all international forums. There is no evidence to bear. UN committees, the last one in 2025, Mr. Andrabi, if you remember, said India was unable to present evidence of any such terrorism. These are committees that are not informed or influenced by either party. They're completely non-partisan, and their multilateralism and their judgment spoke very loud and clear on both the water piece as well as terrorism. But India has no regard for multilateralism, for UN institutions, for the laws that govern the international system. No, they do not. Let's leave that. Let's call a spade a spade. So, it is India now, actually, that is exporting terrorism to Pakistan. Be it Balochistan, be it parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or even now Azad Kashmir. I'm going to say it plainly. It is India now that is exporting terrorism and trying to create islands of complete volatility in our areas, but Pakistan has a long history of fighting terrorism, and we have done so with our hands tied behind our back very often. Now our forces, our military and our law enforcement is well versed in counter-terrorism, which was not the case in necessarily 2007 when all hell broke loose in Swat, if you recall. So but from that time to today, Al-Qaeda was removed from the region, and it was done with the sacrifices and blood and treasure of the Pakistani people. We will continue to fight terrorism because if our house is on fire, we will not wait. And that resolve is very, very clear. So our forces and law enforcement agencies have actually a unique and singular experience of fighting counterterrorism, which many countries do not have, of actually eliminating and removing terrorists from areas that seemed entrenched. Wars that have not been won by many countries with great power have not faced the same end game in Pakistan. Within Pakistan, there is clear resolve across all segments of society as well as political parties. No dispute here. And that includes Kashmir. So, our position is principled, consistent and rooted in international law. We do not ignore law. We are not a rogue state. Our neighbor is. Now these are my views, and I think what we need to understand is that a peaceful, just and enduring resolution in accordance with UN security resolutions and the aspirations of the people of Kashmir are the only ways forward. And we can talk about this becoming rhetoric confined to a single government or a single moment. It is not. As I repeat, all of Pakistan is very clear about this. There is no disunity on this message, and the power behind this message is the power of the Pakistani people. So, even, and we do see the Moditwa era creating new flashpoints in the region. The dangers are clear. I will not digress into all of that because we have limited time. But I do want to say that Kashmir has now become the largest open-air prison in the world. People forget that. To live under this occupation is to exist in constant surveillance, fear and trauma. These are not metaphors, these are lived realities. And I'm going to tell you the human toll, which is documented, verified and unignorable from the Kashmir Media Service and independent human rights bodies. Over 500,000 Kashmiris have been killed since 1947. I believe more, but those are the numbers we have. 3.5 million have been displaced and continue to be removed from their homes. 168,000 arbitrarily detained since 1989. We don't know who is buried in mass graves all over the area, or how many women were raped. 22,963 women widowed. 11,250 women raped or molested. This has been a weapon of India's, very callous war. And over 1,200 children blinded by pellet guns. Are these just numbers to an occupier? Are these just numbers or statistics? I call them statistics of shame for the whole world. We keep raising them, and we will continue to raise them, 96,000 martyrs over that, almost 500 have been recorded since 1989 alone, and 933 of them are still children. Over 107,000 have been orphaned by this occupation, and in the aftermath of Article 370, more than 5,000 political leaders, journalists and activists were swept up in a single wave of arrests, a crackdown documented by many international bodies, including Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. Now, these are not statistics, these are shattered lives, stolen childhood, and families torn apart. So I think it is time that a legal indictment of India, at the very least, is made. The UN Special Procedure experts have already documented them. I won't repeat those. I think the lynchings, the hate speech, and mob violence against Muslims and other minorities all over India continues apace. This is a regime we have never seen. It's exclusionary, it's majoritarian, and it recognizes only one faith, the Hindu Rashtra, as the defining color of what used to be a constitutionally defined secular state. It is a great irony, ladies and gentlemen, that it was Pakistan that is a confessional state, yet if a Hindu temple is razed to the ground anywhere, from Karachi to Khyber, you will hear many of us speak out against it. You will hear mainstream politicians speak out against it, and you will see, therefore, state action. I'm not saying that there are no extremists in Pakistani society, but they are not welcomed, they are not normalized, and they are not acceptable as the norm. The opposite is happening in India. In Modi's India, the opposite is happening. The so-called secular state is wiping out people, their livelihoods, their identities, their futures. Muslims cannot even rent apartments. The Muslims with wealth, those who have actually been moderately successful, they dare not speak out against the Modi's regime. Celebrity film stars dare not do that. They find that they're arrested on trumped up charges. Good God. This is the secular regime that is seeking to decimate an entire region and then calling itself both secular and democratic. I find that bizarre and completely unacceptable that genocidal violence in this valley, like Gaza, is not spoken about. So, lastly, what do we call for? An immediate end to all state violence and IIOJK, cessation of demographic engineering and reversal of illegal legal changes, restoration of civil liberties, political freedoms and communication channels, international access for journalists and human rights observers and MPs that choose to come in, release of all arbitrarily detained individuals, and a renewed global diplomatic effort toward a just, peaceful solution based on UN Security Council's resolutions. No rocket science. These are basic demands, and actually they're not even demands, they're obligations that must be met. They're moral, and they're legal, and they're humanitarian. So with those words, let me conclude with the hope that the resilience of the Kashmiri people is not all that we will depend on. They need our support, they need their story told, and I thank you, IISS, for bringing us all together in this important convening on the 5th today, to be able to tell that story and to remind the world that hope is not a plan. Let's work together to change that for all the Kashmiris. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
I now request Mr. Khalid Mahmood, Chairman Board of Governors, for his concluding remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Senator Shari Rehman, Guest of Honor, Ambassador Tahir Anjarabi, Director General by SSI, Ambassador Mujib Haq, representatives of the Kashmiri people, Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, Barrister Nida Salam, distinguished participants of this very important seminar, ladies and gentlemen. The people of Kashmir have a long history of struggling under foreign domination and repression, under Mughals, Afghans, Sikhs, British, Dogra, and now Indian domination. And this very well informed, educated people attending this seminar, I don't have to go into the history of the present crisis. As we all know that the principle of partition was followed under all the more than 565 princely states of India, except in 3 cases: Junagadh, Hyderabad, and Jammu and Kashmir. India forcibly occupied Junagadh and Hyderabad, whose rulers were Muslim on the ground that they were Hindu majority states, and grabbed the Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir on the contrary plea that its ruler was non-Muslim. So it was a classic case of running with the hare and hunting with the hounds. Now, there is a very sorry tale of Indian broken promises, unedifying role of some Kashmiri political collaborators, and apathy of international community. Because we all know that it was India which took the matter of Kashmir to the UN. And UN gave a very clear verdict that the fate of the Jammu and Kashmir will be decided by the people of Kashmir through an impartial plebiscite to be conducted under the aegis of the UN. India accepted this. Pakistan accepted this prescription. International community accepted this solution. But later on, under one pretext or another, India reneged, and the result is that this dispute remains unresolved and has led to recurrent wars between India and Pakistan, which has now acquired even a nuclear dimension. But this Kashmir crisis entered a new, more ominous phase following the unilateral illegal measures adopted by the occupying power India on 5th August 2019, which sought to abolish Kashmir's special status and autonomy and change the demographic character of the territory, in complete violation of the international law, or Geneva Convention, the relevant UN resolutions, and in fact in the Indian Constitution as well. While coming here, I came across the latest report of an Indian-based Forum for Human Rights in Jammu and Kashmir. The report relates to August 2025 to July 2026. It says, this is the first time in independent, it is the Indian report, which says that it is the first time in independent India that an existing state has been demoted to union territory status. This demotion contravenes Article 1 and 3 of the Constitution of India and the basic structure doctrine that India is a federal democracy in which states' rights must be respected. What is more unedifying is that this Indian illegal action was not rejected in a clear terms by the Indian Supreme Court. It sidestepped this issue and believed that in India's promise that the statehood of Kashmir is restored. This report says that this demotion was unconstitutional and statehood must be restored in total. Ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on, but it was to emphasize that the basic issue involved is the right of self-determination of the people of Kashmir, which has been supported by the UN Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Declaration of Decolonization of the United Nations. My plea is that even if there were no resolutions of the Security Council specific to Kashmir, even then the people of Kashmir have the right to self-determination. Secondly, that those resolutions of the Security Council remain valid. They are not subject to law of prescription. Even the UN Secretary General